The thing about turning 50 is that everyone expects you to be grateful for the attention, even when they're basically celebrating your slow march toward irrelevance. There I was, standing in my own kitchen, well, technically it was still half mine according to the mortgage papers, watching my wife Sarah pour champagne for people who wouldn't piss on me if I was on fire. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah announced, raising her glass with that practiced smile she'd perfected during her climb up the corporate ladder at TechFlow Solutions. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun that made her look like she could fire someone just by looking at them, which, knowing Sarah, she probably could. "Let's toast my dear husband Jake on his 50th birthday." The crowd of about 20 people turned toward me with varying degrees of fake enthusiasm. Most of them were Sarah's colleagues from the startup world, all sharp suits and sharper ambitions. My old engineering buddies from the plant had somehow not made the guest list this year. Funny how that worked. "To Jake," Sarah continued, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was about to slide the knife in just right. Another year older, another year more, settled into his new role in life. The pause before settled was deliberate. Everyone in the room knew what she really meant. Another year more useless. Another year further from the successful engineer I used to be before the plant closed down, and I became the guy who fixed leaky faucets and built birdhouses in the garage. "Cheers," everyone chorused, and I forced myself to smile and raise my own glass. My daughter Emma, home from college for the weekend, was already posting something on her phone, probably another TikTok about her quirky dad and his midlife crisis workshop phase. At 19, she'd inherited her mother's talent for making cruelty look like affection. "Well, thanks, honey," I said to Sarah, because what else do you say when your wife has just publicly castrated you in front of her friends? Really feeling the love. Sarah's brother-in-law, Derek, her sister's husband, and the kind of guy who wore khakis to barbecues and called everyone sport, clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to slosh my champagne. "50's the new 40, buddy," Derek announced. "Though I gotta say, retirement's looking pretty good on you already." I wasn't retired. I was unemployed and doing odd jobs to keep busy while Sarah's tech salary kept us afloat. But Derek knew that. Everyone knew that. The distinction was just another little twist of the knife. "Derek," I said, keeping my voice level, "I'm not retired. I'm between careers." Right, Derek nodded with exaggerated understanding. "Between careers. I love that. Very positive spin." Sarah's best friend and work partner, Lisa Chen, the company's head of human resources and Sarah's closest confidant, stepped into our little circle. Lisa was one of those people who managed to make every conversation feel like a performance review. "Jake, we were just talking about how brave you've been through this transition," Lisa said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Not every man could handle his wife becoming the primary breadwinner so gracefully." "Especially when she's killing it like Sarah is," Derek added. "I mean, VP of operations at her age, in tech? That's incredible." They were talking about me like I wasn't standing right there, like I was some kind of interesting case study in male obsolescence. I caught my reflection in the sliding door to the deck. Graying hair, flannel shirt, work boots that had actually seen work. I looked exactly like what I was, a guy who used to matter. "You know what?" I said, setting down my champagne. "I think I'll check on the food." I escaped to the kitchen, where the caterers Sarah had insisted on were putting finishing touches on appetizers that probably cost more than I used to make in a day. Through the window, I could see our neighbor Bob trimming his hedge and pointedly not looking toward our house. Bob and I used to share beers on Friday nights, but that was before Sarah decided our social circle needed upgrading. The worst part wasn't the humiliation. I'd gotten used to that over the past 2 years since the plant closed. The worst part was how natural it had all become. How easily everyone had accepted that Jake Morrison, the guy who used to design manufacturing systems for a living, was now just Sarah's unemployed husband who puttered around the garage. I was pulling a beer from the fridge when I heard Emma's voice from the living room, clear and carrying. "Oh my God, you guys have to see this video I made about Dad's workshop. It's like a museum of failed projects." Laughter erupted from the group. My own daughter, monetizing my humiliation for social media clout. I popped the beer and took a long drink, staring out at Bob's perfectly manicured yard. That's when I saw Derek's reflection in the window, standing behind me. "Hey, sport, you okay?" he asked, but his tone suggested he was hoping for some kind of breakdown he could report back to the group. "Just fine, Derek." "You sure?" Because Lisa was saying what? Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Just that, this kind of life change can be hard on guys our age. The whole role reversal thing. Role reversal. Yeah, Sarah out there conquering the business world while you're home doing the domestic thing. It's very modern, very progressive." I turned around to face him. Derek was younger than me by about 5 years, with the kind of soft face that suggested he'd never had to worry about where his next paycheck was coming from. His wife, Sarah's sister Jennifer, worked part-time at a boutique and spent the rest of her time planning charity events and redecorating their house. "Derek," I said quietly, "do you have something you want to say to me?" "Hey, no need to get defensive, sport. I'm just saying it takes a secure man to let his wife be the boss, you know?" The kitchen had gone quiet around us. The caterers were pretending not to listen, but I could feel their attention like heat from an oven. "Let his wife be the boss," I repeated. "Yeah, I mean, look at Sarah. She's obviously got the business gene, right? Some people are just natural leaders, and some people are more supportive." I set my beer down on the counter with deliberate care. Supportive. Exactly. Like Jennifer always says I'm the CEO of our family, but Sarah's different. She's got that killer instinct, that drive, and you're man enough to recognize that and step back. That's admirable. Through the doorway, I could see Sarah holding court in the living room, gesturing with her champagne glass while her colleagues hung on every word. She was telling some story about closing a deal, her face animated in a way it never was when she talked to me anymore. "You know what, Derek?" I said. "You're absolutely right." Derek's face lit up with relief. "See? I knew you'd—" "I'm supportive. I'm stepping back. I'm letting the natural leader lead. That's the spirit. In fact," I continued, my voice still quiet and level, "I'm so supportive that I think Sarah should handle everything from now on. The mortgage, the car payments, the credit cards, all of it, since she's so good at being in charge." Derek's smile flickered. "Well, I mean, obviously you guys work as a team. No, you're right. She's the boss. She should get to make all the decisions, including the decision about whether she wants to stay married to someone as useless as me." The kitchen had gone completely silent now. One of the caterers was holding a tray of shrimp like it was a shield. "Jake," Derek said, his voice taking on a nervous edge, "I think maybe you're taking this the wrong way." "Am I?" "Because it sounds like you're saying my wife settled when she married me, that she's too good for me now, that I'm just dead weight she's carrying out of pity." "That's not— I never said—" "You didn't have to say it, Derek. It's written all over your face every time you look at me. It's in Lisa's voice when she talks about my transition. It's in my own daughter's TikTok videos." I picked up my beer and walked past him toward the living room. "Thanks for the pep talk, sport." The party continued for another hour, but something had shifted. Derek avoided me for the rest of the evening, and I caught Lisa and Sarah having whispered conversations in the corner. Emma kept glancing at me with something that might have been concern or might have been annoyance that I'd disrupted her content creation. When the last guest finally left, Sarah started cleaning up with the efficient movements of someone who was already mentally planning her next day. I sat on the couch, still nursing the same beer, watching her stack plates with sharp, precise movements. "That was fun," I said. Sarah didn't look up from the champagne glasses she was gathering. "Derek said you seemed upset about something." "Did he? He's worried about you." "We all are. Jake, don't do that thing where you repeat everything I say. It's childish." I stood up and walked to the sliding door, looking out at our backyard. The deck furniture was expensive and perfectly arranged. The lawn was professionally maintained. Everything was exactly the way Sarah wanted it. "You know what's funny?" I said. "What?" 2 years ago, when I was still working, Derek used to ask me for advice about investments, about fixing things around his house, about whether he should take that promotion at the insurance company. Now he talks to me like I'm some kind of charity case. Sarah sighed. "People don't know what to say, Jake. You've been struggling. It's awkward for everyone. Struggling. There you go again." I turned around to face her. "Sarah, do you think I'm useless?" She froze with a champagne flute halfway to the kitchen. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one. Do you think your husband is useless?" "I think you're going through a difficult time, and I think you're being oversensitive about how people are trying to help. That's not what I asked." Sarah set down the glass and looked at me directly for the first time all evening. Her blue eyes were tired, but there was something else there, something that looked like pity. "I think," she said carefully, "that you need to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life, because this, whatever this is, isn't working. This, the moping, the resentment, the way you look at me like I'm the enemy just because I'm successful. I don't look at you like you're the enemy. Yes, you do. You look at me like I'm responsible for your problems, like my success somehow makes your failure worse." The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Oh, failure. Is that what I am, Sarah? A failure? She didn't answer right away, which was answer enough. "You're my husband," she said finally, "and I love you. But I can't fix whatever's broken inside you. Only you can do that." She picked up her glass and headed for the kitchen, leaving me standing alone in our perfect living room with its perfect furniture and its perfect view of our perfect life. I walked to the mantel where Sarah had arranged our family photos in expensive frames. There was our wedding picture, both of us young and stupid and convinced we'd figured everything out. There was Emma's graduation photo, her smile bright with possibility. There was a picture from last year's company Christmas party, Sarah accepting some award while I stood in the background, smiling and clapping like a good supportive husband. I looked like a ghost in that picture, like someone who was already fading away. That's when I noticed Sarah had left her iPad on the coffee table, still open to whatever she'd been looking at during the party. The screen was bright in the dim room, and I could see the edge of a text message notification. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have looked, but I looked anyway. The text was from someone named Michael. The preview showed just enough to make my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you Monday." Last night was incredible. I stood there staring at the screen for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. My finger hovered over the iPad, and some part of my brain was screaming at me to walk away, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, to go upstairs and brush my teeth and climb into bed next to my wife like nothing had changed. But everything had already changed, hadn't it? I just hadn't been paying attention. I touched the screen, and the messages opened up like a wound. Michael. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Sarah. Me too. But we have to be careful. Jake's already suspicious about something, Michael. Maybe it's time to tell him. You can't keep living like this. Sarah. It's complicated. The house, Emma's tuition, everything's in both our names. I need more time. Michael. I hate seeing you unhappy. You deserve so much better than what you have. Sarah. I know. Soon, I promise. The messages went back weeks, months, maybe. I scrolled up with shaking hands, watching my marriage dissolve in blue and gray text bubbles. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Sarah, 3 weeks ago, the night she'd supposedly been at a client dinner, your husband called the office looking for you. I covered, but this is getting risky. Michael, a month ago. He's so pathetic lately. Just moping around the house like a lost puppy. I can barely stand to look at him. Sarah, 6 weeks ago. That last one hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward, nearly dropping the iPad. Pathetic. Lost puppy. I heard Sarah's footsteps coming back from the kitchen and quickly closed the messages, setting the iPad back where I'd found it. She walked into the living room carrying 2 glasses of water, her expression neutral. You should drink this, she said, handing me one of the glasses. You had quite a bit to drink tonight. I took the water automatically, my hands surprisingly steady. Thanks. I'm going up to bed. Don't stay up too late. She kissed my forehead, a gesture that would have seemed loving an hour ago and now felt like the kiss of death, and headed upstairs. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of the bedroom door closing, the water running in the bathroom. My wife was having an affair. My wife thought I was pathetic. My wife was planning to leave me. I sat back down on the couch and stared at the iPad, wondering who Michael was. Someone from her office, obviously. Someone who saw her every day, who got to witness her success and competence and drive. Someone who didn't remind her of failure every time he walked into a room. The rationale part of my brain was trying to process this information logically. What were my options? Confrontation, couples therapy, divorce lawyers? But there was another part of my brain, a darker part, that was asking different questions. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? Had Derek known when he was giving me his little pep talk about being supportive? Had Lisa known when she was talking about my transition? Had my own daughter known when she was making jokes about my failures? Had I been the only one who didn't know? I picked up the iPad again and opened Sarah's work directory. Michael Reeves, Vice President of Sales. 38 years old, divorced, no kids. His photo showed a guy with perfect teeth and expensive hair, the kind of man who probably had never worried about a paycheck in his life. I Googled him. LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords about synergistic solutions and paradigm shifts. A company bio that mentioned his MBA from Wharton and his passion for disrupting traditional market approaches. Photos from company events where he looked confident and successful and everything I used to be. Everything Sarah needed me to be. I spent the next hour going through Sarah's digital life like a detective, her email, her calendar, her photos. The evidence was everywhere once I knew what to look for. Client dinners that weren't on her work calendar. Photos from company events where she and Michael stood just a little too close. email chains about strategic planning sessions that happened to coincide with her late nights. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. Or maybe they'd just stopped caring about being careful. By the time I finally went upstairs, it was past midnight. Sarah was asleep, or pretending to be, curled up on her side of the bed with her back to me. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, wondering how long she'd been lying to me, wondering how long I'd been lying to myself. The next morning, Sarah was already dressed and ready for work when I came downstairs. She was standing at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone while she ate yogurt from a container. "Morning," she said without looking up. "Morning. Big day at the office?" "The usual. Meetings, conference calls, putting out fires." She glanced at me briefly. "What about you? Any exciting handyman projects lined up?" The casual cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. A week ago, I might have missed it entirely. Now it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. "Actually," I said, pouring myself coffee, "I'm thinking about making some changes." "What kind of changes?" "I don't know yet. But you were right last night. This isn't working." Sarah looked up from her phone, and for a moment I saw something that might have been panic flicker across her face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I need to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Starting today?" She relaxed slightly. "That's good, Jake. That's really good. Maybe you could talk to someone. A career counselor or a lawyer." The yogurt container slipped from her hand and clattered onto the counter. "A lawyer?" "For advice. About starting a business, maybe. Legal stuff." I smiled at her over my coffee cup. "What did you think I meant?" "Nothing. Nothing." She grabbed her purse and keys from the counter. "I have to go. I'll be late tonight. Client dinner." "With Michael?" She froze halfway to the door. "What?" "Michael Reeves, your vice president of sales. I saw his name on your calendar yesterday when you were showing me that funny email. Just wondered if he was going to be at the client dinner." Sarah's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally a kind of forced casualness that didn't quite work. "Probably. Most of the senior staff will be there." She opened the door. "Don't wait up." After she left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, thinking. Sarah thought she was so smart, so careful, so much better than her pathetic husband. But she'd made a mistake leaving that iPad out last night. And she'd made another mistake just now, lying to my face about a client dinner that I was pretty sure didn't exist. I opened my laptop and started doing research. Not about Michael Reeves this time, but about divorce law in our state. About asset division and alimony and what happened when one spouse committed adultery. About private investigators and evidence gathering and how to protect yourself when your whole world was about to fall apart. By noon, I had 3 pages of notes and a plan that was starting to take shape. Sarah wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd forgotten something important about me. Before I was her pathetic, unemployed husband, I was an engineer. And engineers are very good at solving problems. They're also very good at building things, including traps. The thing about being unemployed is that you have a lot of time to think, and watch, and plan. I spent the next week establishing new routines. Every morning, I'd make Sarah coffee and ask about her day with the kind of attentive interest I hadn't shown in months. She seemed pleased by this development, probably thinking her little speech about figuring out my life had motivated me toward self-improvement. She had no idea I was taking notes. "Client dinner tonight," she'd say, and I'd nod sympathetically and ask who she was meeting with. "Conference call with the West Coast team," she'd mention, and I'd make a mental note to check whether her car was actually in the office parking lot at the time she claimed to be on that call. It's amazing what you can learn about someone when you start paying attention. Sarah left for work every morning at exactly 7:45. She came home between 6:30 and 7 on normal days, but twice a week she had late meetings that kept her out until 9 or 10. Those meetings, I discovered, corresponded perfectly with the nights Michael Reeves's Mercedes wasn't in his assigned parking spot at the TechFlow building. I know because I started driving by there, not stalking exactly, just gathering information. The office complex was on my way to Home Depot, where I'd been spending a lot of time lately, not because I had any actual projects, but because it gave me something to do and somewhere to go that felt normal. Plus, the guys at Home Depot treated me like I knew what I was talking about. It was nice to feel competent again, even if it was just about choosing the right drill bits. On Thursday, I followed Sarah's car from a distance when she left work early, claiming she had a dentist appointment. Instead of driving toward Dr. Peterson's office, she headed across town to a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Expensive houses, perfect lawns, the kind of place where people like Michael Reeves lived. She parked in front of a modern glass and steel house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Through the living room window, I could see her embracing a figure that was definitely not Dr. Peterson. I sat in my truck at the end of the block, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It was one thing to read text messages, another thing entirely to watch your wife walk into another man's house in the middle of the afternoon. They didn't even close the curtains. I drove home and sat in my garage workshop, staring at the half-finished project Sarah and Emma liked to make fun of. A birdhouse that was missing its roof. A bookshelf that was slightly crooked. A wooden box I'd started making for Sarah's birthday last year and never finished. Everything I'd touched lately seemed to fall apart. But not this time. This time, I was going to see something through to the end. I started with Michael Reeves's background. Public records, social media, professional history. The guy was exactly what he appeared to be. Successful, ambitious, and completely full of himself. His Instagram was a parade of expensive restaurants, exotic vacations, and workout selfies. His LinkedIn was full of posts about crushing quarterly targets and leveraging synergistic opportunities. He was also, I discovered, still technically married. His divorce wasn't final yet. In fact, according to the court records I found online, his wife was fighting him for alimony and half their assets. She'd filed papers claiming adultery and emotional abandonment. Interesting. I printed out everything I could find and organized it in a folder I kept hidden in my workshop. Photos, financial records, timeline of the affair, copies of the text messages I'd photographed with my phone. I was building a case like I used to build engineering schematics, methodically, thoroughly, with attention to every detail. On Friday night, Sarah came home from another client dinner with her hair slightly mussed and her lipstick gone. She kissed me on the cheek and asked about my day with the kind of bright, guilty cheerfulness that made my skin crawl. "How was dinner?" I asked. "Oh, you know. Boring business stuff. I'm exhausted." She stretched theatrically. "I think I'll take a bath and go to bed early." "Good idea. You've been working so hard lately." She smiled at me with what might have been relief. "Thanks for understanding, Jake. I know this hasn't been easy, with me being gone so much. We all have to make sacrifices." After she went upstairs, I opened her laptop and checked her browsing history. She'd been looking at apartments, one-bedroom places downtown, the kind of trendy lofts that single professional women lived in, the kind of place where she could start over with her successful boyfriend and forget she'd ever been married to a failure. I made copies of everything. The next morning, Emma came home from college for a surprise visit. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when she walked in, looking like a younger version of her mother with the same blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. "Hey, Dad," she said, dumping her backpack by the door. "Where's Mom?" "Still sleeping." Late night at work. Emma rolled her eyes. "She's been working crazy hours lately. I barely talked to her last week." "Yeah, well, big promotion, big responsibilities. I guess." Emma grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl and hopped onto the counter. "So what's new with you? Still building your little projects in the garage?" The casual dismissal in her voice was so much like her mother's that it took my breath away. When had my own daughter started talking to me like I was a joke? "Actually," I said, flipping pancakes with more force than necessary, "I've been thinking about getting back into engineering." "Really?" "That's great, Dad. It's about time. About time. Like I'd been choosing to be unemployed for the fun of it. There are some opportunities opening up," I lied smoothly. "Consulting work, mostly. Companies that need someone with my experience." "That's awesome. Mom will be so relieved." "Relieved?" Emma looked uncomfortable. "I mean, happy. She'll be happy for you." "What did she tell you, Emma?" "Nothing. Just that you were going through a rough patch, and she was worried about you." "Worried how?" "Dad, I don't want to get in the middle of—" "You're already in the middle. What did your mother say about me?" Emma sighed and set down her apple. "She said you were depressed, that you'd given up on yourself, and she didn't know how to help you anymore." "Given up on myself." "Right. She also said," Emma continued reluctantly, "that she was afraid you were going to drag her down with you if something didn't change soon." I turned off the stove and faced my daughter. "Drag her down." Her words, not mine. "And what do you think, Emma?" "Am I dragging your mother down?" Emma looked away. "I think you guys need to figure out how to talk to each other. And maybe you need to figure out what you want to do with your life. Everyone keeps telling me that. Because it's true. Dad, you used to be this confident, successful guy who had everything figured out. Now you're—" She gestured helplessly. "I don't know what you are now." Neither did I, apparently. Sarah came downstairs a few minutes later, and the whole dynamic in the kitchen shifted. Suddenly, Emma was animated and chatty, telling her mother about school and friends and plans for the summer. Sarah was engaged and interested, asking follow-up questions and laughing at Emma's stories. I might as well have been invisible. "I'm going to run some errands," I announced. "Okay," Sarah said without looking up from Emma's phone, where she was apparently viewing some social media post that was hilarious enough to make them both giggle. I drove to the office complex again, but this time I didn't just observe. I walked into the TechFlow building like I belonged there, nodding at the security guard and heading for the elevators. Sarah had mentioned once that Michael's office was on the 7th floor. The elevator was crowded with the kind of young, aggressive professionals that populated Sarah's world. They talked about metrics and deliverables and market penetration with the kind of enthusiasm I used to reserve for solving actual problems. Problems that mattered, problems that built things instead of just moving money around. The 7th floor was all glass and chrome, with an open floor plan that was supposed to encourage collaboration, but mostly just looked like an expensive fishbowl. I could see Michael's office from the elevator, corner location, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of space that screamed success. He wasn't there, but his assistant was. A young woman with perfectly styled hair and the kind of professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm here to see Michael Reeves. I'm Jake Morrison, Sarah Morrison's husband." Recognition flickered across her face, followed quickly by something that looked like pity. "Oh, Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry, but Mr. Reeves is in meetings all afternoon." "That's okay. I'll wait. Actually, he's going to be tied up until quite late. Maybe you could call and schedule." I said I'll wait. The assistant looked uncomfortable. "Sir, I really think it would be better if you... Is there a problem here?" I turned to see a woman approaching us. Mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of authoritative presence that suggested management. "This is Mr. Morrison," the assistant said. "Sarah Morrison's husband. He wants to see Mr. Reeves." The woman's expression shifted to something carefully neutral. "I'm Linda Walsh, head of HR. Perhaps I can help you with something." "I just want to talk to Michael Reeves." "About what, if you don't mind my asking?" I smiled at her. "Business." Linda Walsh studied my face for a moment, then glanced at the assistant. "Why don't we step into my office?" Her office was smaller than Michael's, but still impressive. Wall-to-wall windows, expensive furniture, the kind of space that was designed to intimidate. She gestured for me to sit, but I remained standing. "Mr. Morrison, is everything all right at home?" "Why would you ask that?" "Because you're here asking to see your wife's colleague, and you seem upset about something." "I'm not upset. I'm just trying to understand my wife's work environment better. She spends so much time here, I thought I should get to know the people she works with." "That's very supportive of you." There was that word again, supportive. "Sarah's mentioned that you're between jobs right now," Linda continued. "That must be stressful." "Has she mentioned anything else about me?" Linda's pause was answer enough. "Mr. Morrison, I think maybe you should go home and talk to your wife about whatever's bothering you. Coming to her workplace isn't appropriate? I was going to say productive." I walked to her window and looked down at the parking lot 7 floors below. I could see my truck, looking shabby and out of place among the BMWs and Audis. "You know what's funny?" I said. 2 years ago, I had an office like this. Not as fancy, but similar. People came to me for advice, for solutions to problems they couldn't solve themselves. I was good at my job. I'm sure you were. Now everyone talks to me like I'm some kind of charity case, like I'm broken and need to be handled carefully. Change is difficult for everyone. I turned back to face her. "Is my wife happy here?" The question seemed to surprise her. "I think Sarah is very satisfied with her career trajectory. Yes. That's not what I asked." Linda Walsh was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Morrison, I think you should go home." I nodded and headed for the door. "Tell Michael I stopped by." "Mr. Morrison?" I paused with my hand on the door handle. "Whatever you're thinking about doing," she said quietly, "don't. It won't end the way you want it to." I smiled at her. "You have no idea what I want." But I was starting to figure it out. I drove home with Linda Walsh's warning echoing in my head. Whatever you're thinking about doing, don't. The problem was, I wasn't entirely sure what I was thinking about doing. I just knew that something had shifted inside me during that conversation, something that felt dangerous and unfamiliar. Sarah and Emma were sitting on the back deck when I got home, sharing a bottle of wine and looking like a magazine ad for successful mother-daughter relationships. They barely looked up when I walked through the sliding door. "How were your errands?" Sarah asked. "Educational." Emma was scrolling through her phone. half listening to our conversation. Dad, you should totally get on TikTok. I could help you set up an account. What would I post about? I don't know. Dad stuff, like adventures in unemployment or something. You could make it funny. Adventures in unemployment. My daughter wanted me to monetize my failure for social media entertainment. That's a great idea, Em, Sarah said. Your dad could use a creative outlet. They started brainstorming video ideas for my hypothetical TikTok account, each suggestion more humiliating than the last. Dad tries to cook. Dad's DIY disasters. Dad's midlife crisis chronicles. I excused myself and went to my workshop, where I sat among my half-finished projects and tried to figure out what I was becoming. The old Jake Morrison would have confronted Sarah directly about the affair. He would have demanded explanations, insisted on marriage counseling, fought for his relationship. But the old Jake Morrison had believed his wife loved him. The new Jake Morrison was learning to think differently. I opened my laptop and spent the next hour researching Michael Reeves's soon-to-be ex-wife. Patricia Reeves, 42, worked as a real estate agent in the suburbs. According to her professional website, she specialized in helping families find their dream homes. Her bio mentioned her 2 children and her commitment to integrity and trust in all professional relationships. I found her office number and called. Patricia Reeves speaking. Mrs. Reeves, my name is Jake Morrison. I think we should talk. There was a pause. I'm sorry, do I know you? No, but you know my wife. Sarah Morrison. She works with your husband. The silence stretched so long I thought she might have hung up. Mrs. Reeves. I'm here. Her voice had gone flat and careful. What do you want? I want to meet with you. I think we have some things in common. Such as spouses who think we're too stupid to notice what they're doing. Another long pause. There's a coffee shop called Brewster's on Main Street, she said finally. Tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. Mr. Morrison, come alone. The next morning, I arrived at Brewster's 15 minutes early and chose a table in the back corner where we could talk privately. The place was busy with the usual Saturday morning crowd, families with small children, couples reading newspapers, college students with laptops. Normal people living normal lives. Patricia Reeves walked in exactly at 10, and I recognized her immediately from her website photos. She was attractive in a suburban mom way, with shoulder-length brown hair and the kind of understated style that suggested good taste and financial stability. She looked around the coffee shop until she spotted me, then approached with the careful walk of someone entering enemy territory. Jake Morrison. I stood up and shook her hand. Thanks for coming. She sat down across from me and folded her hands on the table. So, your wife is sleeping with my husband. Apparently. How long have you known? About a week. You? 3 months. She signaled the waitress and ordered coffee. How did you find out? I told her about the iPad, the text messages, the afternoon visits to Michael's house. She listened without interruption, her expression growing more grim with each detail. He's not very careful, she said when I finished. Never has been. I found hotel receipts in his jacket pocket. Are you divorcing him? I'm trying to. He's fighting it because he doesn't want to pay alimony. She stirred sugar into her coffee with sharp, angry movements. Apparently he thinks he can just walk away from 18 years of marriage without consequences. What kind of consequences are you looking for? She looked up at me sharply. What do you mean? I mean, what would constitute justice in your mind? What would make this right? Patricia Reeves studied my face for a long moment. Mr. Morrison, what exactly are you proposing? I'm not sure yet, but I think we both want the same thing, which is for them to face some consequences for what they've done, for them to understand that their actions affect other people. You want revenge? I considered the word. I want accountability. Patricia laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Accountability. That's a nice way to put it. She told me about her marriage to Michael, about the years she'd spent supporting his career while raising their kids and managing their household, about how he'd gradually become distant and critical, making her feel like she wasn't good enough, wasn't interesting enough, wasn't successful enough. It sounded familiar. The worst part, she said, is that he's convinced himself he's the victim, that I was holding him back, that he deserves better, that this affair is somehow my fault for not being supportive enough of his ambitions. Sarah says I'm dragging her down. Of course she does. It's easier than admitting she's just a selfish person who wants what she wants, regardless of who gets hurt. We sat in silence for a while, 2 people who'd been discarded by the people they'd trusted most. So what do we do about it? Patricia asked finally. I have some ideas. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of Sarah's text messages, the timeline I'd constructed of the affair, the evidence I'd been gathering for the past week. "This is very thorough," she said. "I used to be an engineer." "I like documentation." "What's your plan?" "I'm still working on it, but I think the key is to make sure everyone knows what they've done. Their colleagues, their friends, their families. People like this care a lot about their reputations." Patricia nodded slowly. "Michael's up for a promotion to senior VP. Something like this getting out could hurt his chances. And Sarah just got promoted to VP of operations. The company probably wouldn't appreciate knowing she's having an affair with a direct report. Is that what it is? A direct report?" I thought about the organizational chart I'd seen on TechFlow's website. Actually, I think they were at the same level. But there are probably still policies about workplace relationships, especially when one of them is married to someone else. We exchanged contact information and agreed to meet again in a few days. As we were getting ready to leave, Patricia touched my arm. "Mr. Morrison?" "Jake, I want you to know that this isn't your fault. What your wife is doing, the way she's treating you. That's about her, not about you." "Thanks. Same to you." I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, all the times I should have known something was wrong. But the truth is, I didn't want to know. I wanted to believe my marriage was stronger than it was. I nodded. I spent 2 years thinking I was the problem. That if I could just find a job, just stop being such a disappointment, everything would go back to normal. But normal was already broken, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. For the first time since the plant closed, I had a project that mattered, a problem that needed solving, and I was very good at solving problems. Sarah was in the kitchen when I got home, making lunch for herself and Emma. They were planning to go shopping, then out to dinner at some trendy restaurant downtown. "Want to come with us?" Sarah asked, but her tone suggested she was hoping I'd say no. "Thanks, but I have plans." "Plans?" "Meeting an old friend for drinks." Sarah looked surprised. I hadn't socialized with anyone in months. "That's great, Jake." "Which friend?" "No one you know." I went upstairs and showered, then put on clothes I hadn't worn in months. Khakis, a button-down shirt, shoes that weren't work boots. When I came back downstairs, Sarah and Emma were staring at me. "You look nice, Dad," Emma said. "Thanks." "Where are you meeting your friend?" Sarah asked. "Murphy's Tavern." Murphy's was the kind of blue-collar bar I used to go to with my coworkers from the plant. Sarah had always hated it. Too loud, too smoky, too full of people she considered beneath her social status. "Oh," she said. "Well, have fun." But she looked worried. Murphy's was exactly as I remembered it. Dim lighting, worn wooden floors, the smell of beer and fried food. The kind of place where people talked about real things instead of synergistic solutions and paradigm shifts. I ordered a beer and sat at the bar, thinking about Patricia Reeves and her 18-year marriage to a man who'd convinced himself she was holding him back. Thinking about Sarah and her pathetic husband who was dragging her down. Thinking about what accountability might look like. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Everything okay?" "You seemed upset earlier." I typed back, "Everything's fine." "Enjoying my beer." "Good. You deserve to have some fun. You deserve to have some fun." Like she was giving me permission to enjoy myself, like I was a child who needed her approval to go out and play. I ordered another beer and started planning. By the time I got home, Sarah and Emma were back from their shopping trip, bags scattered around the living room like evidence of successful female bonding. They'd bought clothes and shoes and makeup, spending more in one afternoon than I used to make in a week. "How was your friend?" Sarah asked. "Good. We're going to start meeting regularly." "That's wonderful. I've been worried about you isolating yourself." "Isolating myself." "Right. Like it was my choice to lose all my friends when I lost my job." "Actually," I said, "I'm thinking about reaching out to some other old friends, too. Maybe having people over for dinner." Sarah's smile flickered. "Here? Why not? It's my house, too." "Of course it is. I just meant, well, we haven't entertained in so long. I wouldn't want you to feel pressured to." "I won't feel pressured. I think it's time I started reconnecting with people." That night, after Sarah had gone to bed, I sat in my workshop and made a list. Names, phone numbers, relationships, connections. People who used to respect me, who used to value my opinion, who might be interested in knowing what Sarah Morrison really thought of her husband. People who might be interested in knowing what kind of person she really was. I was done being supportive. I was done being understanding. I was done being the pathetic husband who dragged his successful wife down. It was time for Sarah to learn what accountability looked like, and I was going to be a very good teacher. The beauty of being underestimated is that people stop paying attention to what you're actually doing. Sarah had written me off as a harmless failure, which meant she'd stopped monitoring my activities or questioning my explanations. It gave me the freedom to plan. Over the next 2 weeks, I had 3 more meetings with Patricia Reeves. We compared notes, shared evidence, and developed what we started calling the Accountability Project. Patricia had her own network of contacts, other real estate agents, school parents, neighbors who'd watched Michael's behavior over the years. I had my old engineering colleagues, guys from Murphy's Tavern, and a surprising number of people who remembered when I used to be somebody worth knowing. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, simultaneous exposure across multiple networks, timed for maximum impact. "You realize there's no going back from this," Patricia said during our final planning meeting. "Once we do this, our marriages are definitely over." "My marriage was over the moment Sarah decided I was pathetic," I replied. "I just didn't know it yet." We were sitting in her car outside a shopping center, going over the timeline one last time. Tomorrow was Friday. Michael had a big presentation to the board of directors about his promotion to senior vice president. Sarah had a company-wide meeting about quarterly results. Both events would be well attended by colleagues, superiors, and industry contacts. Perfect timing for some uncomfortable revelations. "You're sure about the email addresses?" I asked. Patricia nodded. "I've been collecting them for months. Every contact in Michael's phone, every person on his LinkedIn, every parent from the kids' school, every neighbor on our street." She handed me a flash drive. "Your wife's network is on there too." I'd been just as thorough. Sarah's colleagues, her college friends, her extended family, Emma's friends' parents, our neighbors, everyone who followed her on social media. People who thought Sarah Morrison was a successful, admirable woman who'd gracefully handled her husband's unemployment. They were about to learn the truth. That evening, Sarah came home excited about her presentation the next day. She'd been preparing for weeks, and this meeting could determine whether she got promoted to senior VP herself. "I think this could be it, Jake," she said over dinner. "The breakthrough I've been working toward." "That's great, honey. You deserve it." She smiled at me with genuine warmth for the first time in months. "Thanks for being so supportive through all of this. I know it hasn't been easy, supportive. Even now, she couldn't help herself. What time is your presentation?" 10 o'clock. The whole senior staff will be there, plus some board members." She paused. "Actually, Michael's presenting right before me." "About his promotion." "Michael Reeves." "Yeah, it should be quite a morning for both of us." I smiled. "I'm sure it will be." After dinner, I went to my workshop and opened my laptop. The email was already composed, with attachments containing screenshots of text messages, photos of Sarah and Michael together, a detailed timeline of their affair, and copies of the hotel receipts Patricia had found. The subject line read, "The Truth About Sarah Morrison and Michael Reeves." I'd written it like a technical report, factual and unemotional, letting the evidence speak for itself. No accusations, no emotional appeals, just documentation of what they'd done and when they'd done it. At 9:45 a.m., I hit send. The email went out to 247 people simultaneously: Sarah's colleagues and superiors, Michael's professional network, both their families, their neighbors, Emma's friends' parents, the parents at their kids' schools, local business contacts, everyone who knew them as successful, respectable people. Then I drove to TechFlow and parked across the street from the building. My phone started ringing at 10:15. "Jake, what the hell did you do?" It was Derek, Sarah's brother-in-law, his voice shaking with anger. I told the truth. "You sent pornographic messages to my wife, to Emma, to Sarah's boss." "I sent evidence of adultery to people who should know what kind of person they're dealing with." "You're insane. Sarah's going to destroy you for this." Sarah's a little busy right now. I could see people coming out of the TechFlow building, walking quickly to their cars with their phones pressed to their ears. The body language was unmistakable, crisis mode. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "It's working." Michael just called in sick to his board presentation. Derek was still yelling at me, but I hung up and turned off my phone. I didn't need to hear from Sarah's family right now. I could imagine their conversations: shock, outrage, frantic damage control. The same people who'd been so concerned about my transition were now dealing with their own uncomfortable revelations. At 11:30, Sarah's car pulled out of the TechFlow parking garage, driving fast. She'd be headed home, probably in full panic mode, trying to figure out how to contain the damage. I gave her a 10-minute head start, then drove home myself. Sarah was in the living room, pacing back and forth with her phone, when I walked in. Her face was red and blotchy, her perfect composure completely shattered. "You bastard," she said when she saw me. You absolute bastard. How was your presentation? It was canceled. Everything was canceled. Do you have any idea what you've done? I sat down on the couch and looked at her calmly. I've told people the truth about who you really are. You've ruined my career. You've humiliated me in front of everyone I work with. The way you humiliated me at my birthday party, that's not the same thing, isn't it? You stood in front of our friends and family and made it clear that you think I'm useless. You've been telling people I'm dragging you down, that I'm pathetic, that you deserve better. Sarah stopped pacing. How do you? I read your messages, Sarah. All of them. I know exactly what you think of me. She sank into a chair, her anger replaced by something that looked like fear. Jake, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, we can... No, we can't. Because you don't love me. You haven't loved me for years, maybe longer. You've just been waiting for the right opportunity to leave. That's not true. Then why were you looking at apartments? Why were you planning your exit strategy with Michael? Sarah's face crumpled. I was unhappy. I felt trapped. You were so depressed, so angry all the time, and I didn't know how to help you. So you decided to sleep with your coworker instead. She flinched at the crude language. Sarah had always prided herself on being above such common expressions. It just happened, she said weakly. We were working late, and he understood what I was going through, and... It just happened for 6 months? How do you know how long? Because I did my homework, Sarah. I documented everything. Every lie, every fake client dinner, every afternoon at Michael's house. I treated it like an engineering project. My phone, which I'd turned back on, was buzzing constantly with calls and texts. Sarah's was doing the same thing. Emma called me, Sarah said. She's devastated. Her friends are all asking her about it. You've humiliated your own daughter. That hit harder than I'd expected. Emma hadn't been part of the plan. She'd just been collateral damage. Emma will survive, I said. She's young. People forget. This will follow her for years. Every time someone Googles our family name, they'll find this. Then maybe she'll learn something about consequences, about how actions affect other people. Sarah stood up abruptly. I'm leaving. I'm going to stay with Jennifer until we can figure out what to do about this. Good idea. You might want to call Michael, too. I hear his presentation didn't go well either. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back to me. I loved you, Jake. Maybe not the way I should have, maybe not enough, but I did love you. What you've done today, this isn't the man I married. The man you married had a job and self-respect. You made sure I lost both of those things. I never wanted to hurt you. Yes, you did. You wanted to hurt me enough to make leaving easier. You wanted me to be pathetic so you could justify what you were doing. Sarah opened the door, then paused again. What happens now? Now you get to find out what it's like when everyone knows who you really are. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and waited for the full scope of the fallout to become clear. My phone kept ringing, reporters apparently, because adultery scandals involving tech executives were apparently newsworthy. Sarah's family, alternating between fury and attempts at damage control. Old friends who'd heard about the situation and wanted to know if I was okay. Patricia Reeves called around 3 o'clock. Michael's been fired, she said. His promotion was withdrawn, and they're saying his position is being eliminated due to restructuring. What about Sarah? Still employed, but she's been removed from her VP role. Demoted back to senior manager, pending an investigation into workplace conduct. How do you feel? Patricia was quiet for a moment. Satisfied. Sad, relieved, guilty, all at the same time. Yeah, me too. My lawyer says Michael's going to have to accept my terms for the divorce now. He doesn't have much leverage anymore. That's good? What about you? What's your next move? I looked around the living room at the expensive furniture and perfect decorations that had never felt like home anyway. I think I'm going to sell the house, I said. Start over somewhere else. Any idea where? Not yet. But somewhere people don't know me as Sarah Morrison's pathetic husband. That evening, Emma came home from college, her eyes red from crying. She found me in my workshop, packing up my tools. Dad, what have you done? I've told the truth about your mother. You've destroyed our family. Your mother destroyed our family when she decided to have an affair. I just made sure people knew about it. Emma sat down on my workbench, looking younger than her 19 years. Everyone's talking about it. My friends, their parents, people at school. It's everywhere. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Are you? Because it feels like you wanted to hurt everyone, including me. That stung because it was partially true. I had wanted to hurt everyone who'd participated in my humiliation, and Emma had been part of that. Your mother and I are getting divorced, I said. That was going to happen whether I sent those emails or not. At least this way, people know why. She says she still loves you. She loves the idea of me, the successful husband she used to have. She doesn't love who I actually am. Emma was quiet for a long time, watching me wrap my tools in old towels. I made fun of you, she said finally. In my videos, at the party. I treated you like you were a joke. Yeah, you did. I'm sorry. I stopped packing and looked at my daughter. Emma, do you think I'm pathetic? She considered the question seriously. I think you were lost. And maybe I was embarrassed by that, but what you did today, that wasn't pathetic. That was scary. Scary how? Scary because it was so calculated, so thorough, like you'd been planning it for months. I had been planning it, for weeks anyway. Dad, are you okay? I mean, really okay. I thought about the question, was I okay? I'd just destroyed my wife's career and reputation. I'd humiliated my own daughter. I'd burned down my entire life in a single morning. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt like myself again. I'm better than I've been in a long time, I said. Emma nodded slowly. I can see that. You look different, more like the dad I remember from when I was little. That dad had something to fight for. And now I have something to build, starting with figuring out who I am when I'm not Sarah Morrison's husband. Emma helped me finish packing my tools, and we talked about practical things. The house, the divorce, where I might go, how we'd stay in touch. It was the longest real conversation we'd had in months. As she was getting ready to leave, Emma hugged me tightly. I love you, Dad. Even if I don't always understand you. I love you too. And Emma, I am sorry you got hurt by this. That was never the intention. I know, but Dad, maybe next time you want to blow up your life, you could give people a heads up first. I laughed, surprising both of us. I'll try to remember that. After Emma left, I walked through the house one more time, looking at the life Sarah and I had built together. The wedding photos, the family vacations, the carefully curated evidence of a successful marriage, all of it had been a lie for longer than I'd wanted to admit. My phone rang. Patricia Reeves. I just wanted to check on you, she said. This has been a big day. It has. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. My kids are upset, but they're also relieved that the fighting is finally going to stop, and my lawyer says we should be able to finalize everything quickly now. Good. Jake, do you regret it? I thought about Sarah's face when she realized what I'd done. The shock, the fear, the recognition that her carefully constructed world was falling apart. I thought about Michael Reeves, probably sitting in his perfect house right now, trying to figure out how to explain to his children why Daddy didn't have a job anymore. I thought about all the people who'd received my email, who were probably having uncomfortable conversations about truth and consequences and what they really knew about the people in their lives. No, I said, I don't regret it. Neither do I. After we hung up, I poured myself a beer and sat on the back deck, looking out at the yard Sarah had spent so much money perfecting. Tomorrow I'd call a realtor. Next week I'd start looking for apartments. Next month I'd begin the process of figuring out what Jake Morrison's life looked like when it wasn't defined by other people's expectations. For the first time in 2 years, the future felt like something I could control. My phone buzzed with one final text message. From Sarah. I hope you're satisfied. I typed back, I'm getting there. Then I turned off the phone and sat in the quiet evening, listening to the sound of my old life ending and my new one beginning. It was the most peaceful I'd felt in years.